exactly very factual presentation. It's more overview that I will do about Giuseppe Antoni Coderch, about his work, the most let's say celebrated works that he provided us over the years that he was alive and working as an architect. So one thing that, although one thing that we should know about Coderch was that he was an architect that was characterized by a reactionary drawing against the established architectural paradigm in Spain at the time. And he found and was member of several important groups. For example, he found Grupo R. So it was a group of architects in Spain that were quite remarkable. He also was a part of Team 10, another group of architects with some relevance in Spain. And he also was the continuous represented member of the CM, together with other architects like Corbusier. So he was quite important. And another thing is to retain, it was his influence from architects as Álvaro Aalto that really mark his work in a way that he faces the dueling within the houses that he was basically specialized in it, and all either private or block of apartments, blocks, and so on. So without dwelling more on this brief biographical presentation, I'm going just through his works now. And my apologies in advance for some images that may be a little bit small, but I was afraid them to get completely pixelized and then just be a blur. So I prefer to put it a little bit smaller. So this is the picture of the architect. And as you can see, it's already probably really a little bit blurry, but this was one of the pictures that I found it to be more interesting to show that his profile, like it was impressed on a coin. And this is at least the first work that I found from him. And at the time, he was working in partnership with the architect that was Manuel Valls, another Spanish architect. And this is basically, let's say, his first known work. And as you can see, I don't know, for ones that are familiar with the Mediterranean and Spanish architecture, doesn't go that much away from the traditional housing in Spain, or even in Portugal, or maybe in Italy. But there is something that starts to be a little bit different. That is the reinterpretation of the way that you leave the spaces in between the private spaces of the house and also the exterior spaces of it. And this is something that I am pointing out now because it's going to be very relevant for all his work. And this use of blinds and these in-between spaces between the dueling space and the outside are very present in all his work. And you can see this continuously, how can I say, layered between one space and another that are going to be present on all his work, as you can going to see in further presentations. Here, my apologies for the plant, but it was the only one with enough quality. We are talking about some plants that are quite old, and well, let's say that Coderch is not exactly very advertised everywhere, so there is not much reproductions of his work. And then a more present picture of it. So on this house here, it's another one that he did in partnership with Manuel Valls. you can see that again, typical Mediterranean South Europe. When I talk about South Europe, I'm referring more to Portugal, Spain, Italy, maybe a little bit of Greece, although there is other countries in South Europe. But I'm talking about countries that have more plain white architecture to fight off the sun. And you can see that, but you see the way that he treats the shadow within these pocket spaces. Some kind of feedback. I hope that is not from my computer. My apologies. Can you guys all hear me? Or
now it's fine, David.
yeah, it's just the noise can be a little bit disturbing. I don't know. I'm not sure from where it comes out. It's not from here. Yeah, it's just not from here.
David, do you have another gadget nearby, like your mobile or something nearby?
No, it's not even close by. But well, let's hope that it was not from here. Okay, so this is another one that again, it's quite plain. To be fair, nothing new. But again, this use of the blinds, they start to get noticed, and these spaces, these pocket spaces within the within the dual wings. And then, for some reason, he started to completely divert from this kind of architecture. So again, this is still a work with Manuel Valls. At the beginning of his works, mainly during the 50s, he was always doing a partnership with him. And you can see here that he goes away from that and he starts to practice one thing that is also quite connected with the vernacular architecture of these countries that I mentioned before within the Mediterranean culture, that is the integration with the landscape and so on, and the presence of the white on the architecture, also the use of the shadow and the light on it. But the way that he organically goes along with the terrain is something that goes away from the architecture that was produced at the time in Spain on a more mainstream way, and goes towards a reinterpretation of the vernacular with more modern and rational hints that he's providing on his architecture. Some of these drawings are not exactly originals from him. They are drawings that I found on the internet of basically drafts that were done over his drawings, but they provide a good survey of the project. And again, you can see that the house kind of mix with nature and landscape, and all the colors. Although the white it gives a clear contrast from the nature, all the other colors and materials and the plasticity of it, they quite mingle with the surroundings. I'm going to, yep, it was not me. My apologies, Echo, but I needed to mute you. My apologies for the double C there. I was thinking that I took it out. So this is one of his most famous housing complex that he did in Barcelona in the early 50s. And as you can see, this is the scenario that you had in Barcelona during that time. Sorry, Dan, I need to do one thing. This is not going well. Okay. And so this is the building and the surroundings of the building during the 50s when basically it was built. As you can see, it was a little bit of a contrast with the surroundings. Although you can see some buildings mainly here that are around the same height. This one in particular that is next to it and is still there, is still up. But all the rest, I don't know, looks a little bit out of context, this building. But as you can see before, I mentioned that those shading elements like the blinds and the materiality of his architecture was something that we need to follow on this within his work along his life. And this is one of his examples. Also, that organicity of his drawings, it's now present on in a more rational way. Although you can see here that it looks almost like a butterfly, like a completely mirrored plan. And you can see that it still has some kind of regular geometry to it. There is, behind the rationality of space, also organicity that is present on all of his plans. And you've seen that this house in particular, I quite like this project, and I managed to convince at the time that I was studying in Barcelona to enter one of the still original flats, and I saw from inside. Although I don't have pictures to prove it, because well, out of respect to the lady that old lady that let me in, I was not going to photograph her house. But you can see that that there is this fluidity of spaces and this intermingle with all, for example, all the rooms. They are all separated, but all connected through the walls, but also through the outside balconies. And then you have a direct flow with a kitchen that goes through the living room and another balcony. There is something nice about it. This is basically the upstairs room. Upstairs apartment, and this is the plan from the downstairs, the shops. And for example, this building was built probably, by the looks of it, around 60s. And this one here was built in the 50s. And this is a way more contemporary language that probably is still be easily followed today. And this one here is completely, let's say, obsolete, the kind of language that is following. It's impressive. This one, I don't know if you guys remember, but didn't exist when it was built. It was after it. So this one here, clearly it's late 19th century, most likely beginning of 20th century. This one, 50s. And then this one, what the hell, appears here, but I don't know, doesn't talk with this with this language. That's one of the reasons that at the beginning of the presentation, I say that he was kind of reacting to the present architecture language of his country at the time. And the amount of detail, the amount of care about how the materials interlink with each other, it's quite remarkable. And again, the presence of the light, the shadow, and these pocket spaces that he designed so well. So this here, my apology for the miniature picture. I'm going to try to zoom. Let me know if it is too much pixelized. So this here, I'm just putting out of it here to show as a milestone, because this here was just a pavilion that he did, but in Milano for international exhibitions regarding the Spanish pavilion, and give him some protagonism in Spain, because he was awarded with a golden medal by the by his work here. So this building here, also in Barcelona, this is a complete block of apartments that they are for social housing, and they follow some of the traditional materials around the place, but also in terms of design, the language follows something a little bit different than the ones around it. And here you can see the entire complex, and you can see the way that he was treating the relation with the sunlight entrances and the shadow. I'm always focusing on this matter, because it's something very important on countries like Spain and, for example, in Barcelona, because we are talking about countries where if you don't have a cared architecture design towards towards this kind of space, you end up having spaces that are not exactly livable, and you always need to pay attention to this kind of constraints in architecture in Spain. And when I say Spain, or all over the world, when you have these kind of issues with sun. Here, a general plan of the complex, and again, that you have here, all of you can see like a very regulated plan with several rules in place for sure, but there is some kind of organicity within the spaces and the control of what are the private and public spaces, even inside of the house, that are most uncommon at the time on architecture in the Mediterranean countries, by a reinterpretation of something that was there before, but on vernacular architecture. This here, it's another house that he did, another block, but this is a single dwelling for a single family in this case, but built in height. Don't have much information about this, but I quite like these details showing these promenades of the chimney and the materials against the wall and so on. My apologies for, again, the small picture, but here you can see it better. It's this kind of care that he had, not only with the architecture, but also with some pieces of furniture that he placed inside, like that chimney with a fireplace that we saw before, but also with the bedrooms, for example, on this double bedroom. That you can see here. So this here is another house that he did in stitches. And again, you can see a relationship between the landscape, although this is a completely flat land on this part. It has some hilly parts around it, but it's completely flat. So you can see here a clear, I would risk it, a clear influence of even Mies van der Rohe. And some of other works from him regarding the coziness and the ambience inside and the transposition from inside to outside, you can see Alto on it. Here you can see regulated rational plan as Mies, and even on the elevations you see the same. But always the presence of the materials, the warmth in contrast with the white of the walls and the blinds, shadow and light. Another house in Campadron. And here you have a completely different approach. So the materials are a little bit different on this one. We are talking about a part that it's not that arid. It's a little bit this region is a little bit more in Spain. It's a little bit more green, and you can see that even the rooftop it's not flat anymore on this one. It's a pitch roof to allow water to flow more freely. And also the materiality, it's a little bit more towards the stone and the brick rather than the rest. But you still look at the plans and you see the same kind of principles of the other ones. But this is clearly more kind of a mountain house rather than the other ones that were more countryside of like an arid countryside space. And as you can see, the mountains on the back of the valley. But always this relationship between interior and exterior. So another house, this time in Comillas. And this one is quite curious. So from this picture, you cannot exactly tell completely. I don't know if you're familiar with this project, but this is it's curious because you see what it looks like on the left, a very traditional house around that area. But then here you have a huge balcony and a huge canopy on top of it. And also the shape of it, it's not very regular. It's something that it's quite unusual. And then you see the plan and wow, what is this? You have two pentagons merging together, kind of mirroring, but then inside it's a completely different world again. This kind of organicity on the plans gives some kind of life to his architecture that it's quite uncommon on some plans at the time from other architects from his country. But then on the section is quite regular. Nevertheless, the plans and you see the elevations have some kind of life that I think that people that the houses can feel it. And this integration with the landscape and the views that he provides are quite well taken care of. So this one here has the same name of a house before. So I'm betting that probably was the same client, but this time he wanted a house. And this is one of his most known buildings as well. And you can see again, more or less 10 years after, you still have the same principles of the Barceloneta, with a slight reinterpretation. When I say Barceloneta, it's the nickname that people call that house. Normally it's Casa de la Marina, but Barceloneta, it's the area where the house is. So normally people mention to that house as a Barceloneta. So here you can consider again, 10 years after that work, you can see a reinterpretation again of blinds, of the structure that is more pronounced here. And well, the house, you can see that this is a more recent picture, and well, it's a little bit damaged, and so you have ivies go up and down, but it's kind of a patina of time that is put upon the house, and the principles are still there. He went through a more rational approach, reinterpreting a little bit the principles that he provided before, but never forgetting his main goal on drawings, at least in my view, that are the pocket spaces, providing in-between spaces between private and the exterior or public, and the light and shadow, and also the organicity of the materials. And as you can see here, a very regular plan, but on the exterior and on the fluidity of it, you can see that there is some kind of life within it. So another house, he was an architect that basically built houses and housing complexes. He didn't diverge much more from it. And here you see one house that is following the slope, and is interesting, the plan, because the plan looks like some steps. So what he has on elevation, he has on plan. It's like you have a slope on elevation and you have a slope on the plan. And then again on elevation, it's like you have stepping stones as the landscape on his surrounding. And it's like you are just putting some blocks on top of the hills over there. And he took the opportunity of course, of the viewpoints of it to do this remarkable house. So this here is another project that I quite like. This was a studio and a house that he did in Barcelona as well, for a famous Catalan painter that was Antoni Tapier. And you can see that the house, again, quite diverged from the context. These houses were there before. And although he follows completely, and these are some kind of rules that you must follow urbanistically in Barcelona, mainly if you are inside of the Serta Plant, because there are strict rules about the height levels that you must follow if you want to build there. There are rules about the balconies that you are providing or not, and also the height of the building. So you can see here that he kind of play with it, because one trick that you can do is you cannot normally go up higher than some of the buildings that are on the context. And the number of floors, they must follow the buildings on the same block, on the same quarter. So you can see that here there are 3 floors, here there are 3 floors, but here there are 4 floors. So you say, okay, I can align this, but I can build 4 floors, and providing more space inside. And you are going to understand why I'm saying this when I will show the section. So the plans are quite basic. You have basically a narrow house, but it's filled of voids that provide light to the space that were essential for the artist to do his works. And although here in plans you cannot exactly see much of it, you can see that there are skylights everywhere, there are voids, and then you start building up. And the house ended up being something like this. So you have 4 floors on the front of the house. On the side part, you still have 1/2, because this is the library. It was one of the main spaces of the house. And then you have the studio of the artist on the back. Here also on this part of the courtyard, and the rest is the dwelling space of the house. And this is the full elevation of it. And as you can see, you only see this part of the house, and the rest is concealed on behind it, not damaging the urban context of the street. This is from the inside. And you see that there is appropriation left on purpose. This is the study library room. And some other dwelling spaces filled of light. Parts of the studio within the courtyards, and the studio on the back of the house. So here another dwelling, following more or less the same rules of and principles of that one in the mountains that I showed before. Not going to dwell that much within this one, but all the principles are there. This one, it's again following the same principles. I'm just putting these ones here to illustrate a little bit more of his work. And you can see always this play with the shadow, light, nature, and plasticity of the materials. This one here, it's one of the few exceptions of his almost housing solo career, but it's still related with the dwelling of the spaces. And this one, I really struggle to find a better one. And my apologies for this plan. But it was just to illustrate a little bit the facade, how you translate into plan the facade of this hotel. And it's very interesting, the back and forwards of the facade of the windows that give some life to the building. And you can see that on the opposite of the building, the one that is facing the sea, is facing the beach, you have basically almost blind wall there. So this one here, it's a house, another house project. And again, you can see that the playful way that he dispersed the plan, almost I would say in a Mies van der Rohe, Frank Lloyd Wright way of doing it, but also never forgetting one of his main influences, that was Alvarado. The playful of the materials with the light is quite interesting to see it. And you can see that he basically follows always the same principle along his work in a very consistent and coherent way. My apologies for the small images again. So this is a more central space in Spain. It's in Madrid. And what is interesting about this project is, again, the complexity of the plant. But when you look with a more attentive look into it, you can see that actually it's quite simple, the organization of it. But the way that it plays with the different levels within the same plan, it's very interesting. It's a very simplistic, rational way of drawing architecture. So this is another building that is quite well known from him. This is another housing complex. This is in Madrid as well. And here he used the brick as a main cladding material. And you can see that the plan is, although outside the building is quite regular, inside it's not, it follows a completely different dynamic. It's still regular, but it's a completely different logic. Let's see if I can zoom a little bit for you guys to see it better. So this is the garage part. Oh, okay. I was thinking that I could do this, but I can't. I need to zoom one by one. This is the part where you have the shops on the level of the street. This is still a part regarding shops, but also have some part that is an elevated part of the building. You guys are going to see afterwards. It's a connection within the gardens and within the shops. And then for last, you have the plans regarding the flat on top of it. This is the building. And these are the relations that you can see on different levels on the ground floor, within the shops and the rest. This building here is in Barcelona and is one weird exception of materials to his work because it's all glazed. This is in the entrance of the Barcelona. Who knows the city can see this in one of the main entrances through the main avenue, that is the Avinguda Diagonal. And you can see that these towers are, who says that this is from Coderch and doesn't know the rest of the work would say this doesn't fit, and who knows Coderch and then say that is from Coderch also doesn't fit. I don't know, this one is one work that I don't find it special, although it's some kind of nice relation with the surroundings by the mirroring of it. But to be fair, I don't think that is nothing much. I guess he got the commission, and as a good professional, he built up. But still has some principles regarding the organization of the plants, mainly, and that's it. So this is another housing complex. And again, these stepping plans on 2D level that you can see elevation and plan, it's always playful. Sorry, I'm just going fast forward here because I know that I'm already talking for a long time. Here, another interesting project from him in Barcelona, and late 60s, beginning of 70s. And is this. As you can see, all the other buildings on the surrounding are quite regular. And he built this. I don't know if you noticed this, but this is inside of the Serta Plant. So you need to obey on this square space that is chamfer, and as a rule is chamfer on all the corners. On the square space of 113 meters by 130 meters, you cannot go from it. You need to respect all the heights of the surroundings, and you should provide always an internal space for people to do well. And this is quite an exception because there is not much examples of this in all of these blocks around the Serta Plant. And also the fragmentation, the materialization of contiguous facades here that normally you see on the blocks of Barcelona. You see these fragmented bits that invite you in. And then in the main corridor, you actually have a very rectangular and regular facades along with. It's almost that you revert the principle of regular facades and elevations of the outside towards the street to the inside and give the inside of the buildings towards the outside. And this is the looks of the building that I think that is interesting. The plasticity that he used again on the materials and the patina of time on it, and the spaces that he provides for people to do well. This is that main corridor that I was thinking that you can access from the sides and then go inside. And actually here, the ones that you think that probably are going to be the main access are for cars and on the side for people. Almost reminds me in a way the work of Louis Kahn, at least some kind of influence on Salt Lake City. Mainly on the disposition of the balconies and that relation towards the outside. So another building housing complex in Barcelona, very similar to the other one. And he was quite rational once he got a principle that was working. He was quite rational in a very rational way, replicating along his works on a very coherent way. This here, you can see that it's quite more dense for the number of windows and openings that has to it. But it's still interesting dialogue on the facade. And the way that he put together the brick is also, it's interesting. It's not very usual to see this amount of brick around some buildings in this part of Spain. My apologies. I was thinking that this one had survived, but it's quite pixelated. And these are the plants. Again, that chaos that looks at the first sight, sorry. And then you start to exploring the plan and you see that it's quite rational and organized. Not sure if this house has something to do with the Gowell family that was always a big sponsor of Gaudi, but probably has to it. It's not a very usual surname. And just put it here as a curiosity of another nicely put plan organization of the house. So was his own house in Catalonia, and I only managed to get a decent picture of it. But for an architect, I must say he was doing well if he had this house as his own house. This is the French Institute in Barcelona. And you can see that it's quite rational approach, but still has some nice touch to it. The amount of light and so on. If you compare these, it's not that far. It's not living that far from the completely glazed towers that he produced. And although the glazed towers are rounded, and this one is completely orthogonal, this seems to have more life than the other one. Although from this picture here almost looks like a collage from the Jacques Tati Playtime film. But the inside, again, the light was very well played. This here, it's a technical center for the car company Seat in Matorrell. I only managed to find this decent picture. It's very industrial look like, but it's interesting that the architect that was doing some pieces of work like that housing complex in the Barceloneta, Casa da Marina, that is very organic within a butterfly plan. And then he produced this work quite flexible, I can say. And this was the extension of the Barcelona School of Architecture. So Barcelona University has two faculties of architecture. One, the main one, and the older one is this one that is at the entrance of Barcelona. So the part that you can see with the bricks and so on is the extension that he provides with a part of the tall building. And the other school, it's in Sant Cugat de Valles, that belongs to the same university, and it's where he has his archive of all his drawings and projects. Although at the time that university was, I think that at the time of his death was basically being built, if I'm not mistaken, and he was a teacher, a professor at this university, on this faculty instead of the other one. But it's interesting, the principles that he always applied on his housing projects, he applies here. And yeah, so I guess he was a professor there, managed to get a commission. Maybe it was around, I don't know, but it was a nice work. And well, these pictures that they don't show, but on the pre-COVID period, this is full of life and full of students playing around on the grass, studying there, going inside and out of the corridors on the university. And even the top space of the building, it's quite a nice, playful drawing within shadows and light. And that's it. Sorry for the long presentation.
Thank you, David. It was not long at all. In fact, it was rather short. No. What I'm trying to say is, you were welcome, and you are welcome to. If you want to say something else about this architect, please do so. Do not feel guilty that it was long. No, it was not long. As you can tell, I am myself Why should I say myself?
Actually, it was less than 1 hour. I was thinking that I was speaking for longer.
No, well, because you showed many works, and no, but it was fine. Thank you very much.
It's okay. You're welcome.
I hope everybody agrees that it was fine. Maybe you can activate the screen post the presentation. I don't know.